Empires don't collapse overnight. They don't fall in one explosion, one battle, one decisive moment. That's what history teaches you to expect. But reality? It's slower than that. More subtle, more dangerous. Because empires don't collapse, they decay. And if you're watching the Iran war closely, you're not just watching conflict, you're watching decay. Sanctions, internal instability, economic strain. The kind of stress that doesn't break a system immediately, but weakens it over time. Quietly, systematically. Until one day, the system still looks intact, but it's no longer strong. That's where Iran was. And then came February 28th. Hundreds of coordinated strikes. The United States and Israel hit military infrastructure, air defenses, leadership targets. Merely 900 strikes in hours. Encyclopedia Britannica 1. On the surface, it looked like overwhelming force, like the beginning of the end. But here's what most people miss. Even after that level of impact, the system didn't collapse. It adapted. Iran responded with missiles, drones, regional escalation. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but persistently. Because decay doesn't mean immediate failure. It means reduced efficiency, slower response, weaker coordination, but still functioning. That's what makes it dangerous. Because from the outside, it still looks like power, but inside, it's under pressure. Look deeper. The war didn't stay contained. It spread across the region, across systems, across economies. Iran targeted shipping routes, threatened the Strait of Hormuz, attacked energy infrastructure. And suddenly, this wasn't just a military conflict anymore. It became a global disruption. Oil flows, supply chains, financial markets. Everything started reacting. Because when a system is under pressure, it doesn't just weaken internally. It creates instability externally, and that instability reveals the cracks, fuel shortages, price spikes, global economic stress. What looks like chaos is often just exposure. Exposure of how fragile things actually are. Because strong systems absorb shocks, decaying systems amplify them. And that's the difference. This war didn't create weakness, it revealed it. Years of economic isolation had already reduced growth, investment, and stability. Long before the first missile was launched. The war just accelerated what was already happening. That's how decay works. It's invisible, until it's undeniable. And it's not just Iran. That's the uncomfortable part. Because decay isn't unique to one country, it's a pattern. Every empire in history followed it. Not sudden collapse, gradual erosion. Institutions weaken. Systems become inefficient. Control becomes harder to maintain. So leadership compensates. With more force, more control, more pressure. But that doesn't fix decay. It exposes it further. Look at what's happening internally. Crackdowns, executions, attempts to control dissent. Not as a sign of strength, but as a reaction to instability. Because when a system feels threatened, it tightens. And tightening is not growth, it's defense. And systems in defense mode are already losing ground. But here's where it gets deeper. Decay doesn't just happen inside borders. It affects how a system interacts globally. Allies become uncertain. Enemies become the face of the nation's diversity and transform conflict. Ascends civil orbit. Even outside the region, countries are feeling the shift. Energy prices rise. Inflation increases. Markets destabilize. Entire economies adjust. Because when one system weakens, others move to fill the gap. That's how power transitions happen. Not with a clear handover, but through gradual shifts. Influence moving, leverage changing hands, quietly, strategically. And most people miss it. Because they're waiting for collapse. A headline moment. A clear ending. But decay doesn't give you that. It gives you ambiguity, mixed signals, strength in one area, weakness in another, progress and regression at the same time. And that confusion is part of the process, because it delays recognition. It makes people believe the system is still stable, even when it's not. And by the time it's obvious, the shift has already happened. That's why this war matters. Not just because of who wins or loses, but because of what it reveals. That power isn't lost all at once. It's drained. Over time, through pressure, through inefficiency, through constant strain on systems that can't fully recover. So when you look at Iran, don't just see a country at war, see a system under stress, adapting, resisting, but also wearing down. And ask yourself, where else is this happening? Because decay doesn't announce itself. It hides behind normalcy, routine, stability, until something forces it into the open, like war. And once you see it, you start recognizing the pattern everywhere. Strong systems absorbing pressure, weak systems amplifying it, and decaying systems trying to hold on. That's the stage most people misunderstand. Because holding on looks like strength, until it doesn't. Until the cost becomes too high, until the system can no longer sustain itself. And when that moment comes, it won't feel sudden. It will feel overdue. Like something that was always heading in that direction. You just didn't notice how far it had already gone. So don't wait for collapse to understand power. Watch for decay, because that's where the real shift happens. Slowly, quietly, irreversibly. And by the time everyone sees it, the empire isn't falling. It's already gone. If this changed your perspective, subscribe. Because the next video might change your life. In 510, THETS://..com/war/UTM source/chatgpt.com. Confrontation with the West and long-run economic and institutional outcomes. Evidence from Iran.